When most of us think about aging, we usually just focus on what we see in the mirror, right? The wrinkles, the gray hair, maybe waking up with a stiff back. But the real story, the actual mechanism of aging, that is happening deep inside your biology on a totally microscopic level. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into exactly what's going on under the hood. So, what if aging isn't just about your DNA mutating over time? What if it's actually about literal microscopic garbage just piling up inside your cells? I want you to picture your cell as this bustling, high tech factory, and it's staffed by millions of little stickman workers. Today, we're looking at what happens to your body when the trash starts piling up on their factory floor.
It all basically comes down to this one crucial concept, proteostasis. This is essentially protein homeostasis. It's your body's biological quality control process that makes sure your proteins are perfectly manufactured, folded, and eventually recycled. Think of your little stickman workers meticulously folding perfect paper origami. In biology, shape is absolutely everything. If that 3D shape is wrong, the protein simply doesn't work.
Section 1, the protein misfolding problem. Okay, so let's look at how this plays out. In a young, healthy cell, you have these highly energetic stickman workers called chaperones. They have one main job: perfectly fold those proteins and clear out any waste. But as our cells age, these chaperones get totally exhausted. They're overworked. And because of that, they start leaving these crumpled, misfolded proteins behind, which then start piling up as toxic aggregates. And this is a great visualization of exactly what's happening in the scientific literature. When something like heat or oxidative stress causes a perfectly folded protein to suddenly unfold, it hits a biological crossroads. It has to either be successfully refolded by heat shock proteins or sent to the cellular shredder to be destroyed. If both of those safety nets fail, the protein becomes a toxic clump, and that aggregation leads directly to cellular aging. Section 2. When quality control fails. So, what's the actual fallout when this system breaks down? Well, when proteostasis completely collapses, all that resulting cellular garbage isn't just harmless dust. It actively drives some really severe age-related diseases. We're talking about the accumulation of amyloid beta and tau proteins in the brain, which are deeply linked to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. This misfolded trash also sparks chronic, system-wide inflammation, often called inflammaging, and it triggers cellular senescence. Senescence is wild. It's basically when your cells stop dividing altogether and turn into literal zombie cells. They just sit there, refusing to die, pumping out inflammatory chemicals into your healthy tissue.
To put the scale of this job into perspective for a second, 20,000. Your DNA repair mechanisms alone face roughly 20,000 damaging events per cell every single day. Just think about that. The sheer, relentless stress your cellular stickmen are under to maintain order and keep those proteins perfectly folded is absolutely staggering. Section 3, the autophagy recycling plant.
Thankfully, our factory has an incredible internal recycling plant to handle this exact crisis, called macroautophagy. This is the process where cellular waste is swallowed up by little transport pods called autophagosomes, and then totally broken down in the lysosomes. Basically, autophagy is your diligent stickman street sweeper. They sweep up all those toxic, crumpled origami proteins, toss them right into the cellular incinerator, and break them down into raw amino acids so your body can reuse them. It's a brilliant system.
But there is a catch, a major biological roadblock. Autophagy actually shuts down completely when nutrients are abundant, specifically when a growth pathway known as mTOR is hyperactive. When you're constantly eating, mTOR tells the factory, hey, we have plenty of food, let's build. And that forces your stickman street sweepers to clock out. The cell becomes entirely focused on growth, so the cleaning process just stops.
Section 4. Brainwashing. The glymphatic system.
Now, let's look at the brain, because it manages its own highly specialized waste disposal system. It's an incredible 4-step mechanism that literally washes the toxic protein aggregates right out of your brain tissue. First, cerebrospinal fluid pulses into the brain along the spaces outside your blood vessels. Second, it meets up with the interstitial fluid through these AQP4 water channels. Third, as these fluids wash through the brain tissue, they actively scrub away waste like lactic acid and those dangerous amyloid beta and tau proteins we mentioned earlier. And finally, all that collected trash drains right out of your brain and into the lymphatic system.
But here's the thing you really need to know. This deep cleaning process is incredibly dependent on sleep. Specifically, stage 3 NREM sleep, what we usually call slow wave or deep sleep. When you're in deep sleep, the space between the cells in your brain actually expands, allowing that fluid to wash through way more effectively. If your little stick man isn't getting deep, high-quality sleep, the factory doors stay locked. That brainwashing system simply cannot run, and the protein trash just stays locked up inside your brain.
Section 5. The dietary protein paradox.
This brings us to a massive clash in the longevity space regarding amino acids, which are the building blocks of these proteins. We have a fascinating paradox here between two highly respected experts. On one side, you have Valter Longo, who argues for a low-protein plant-based diet to keep that mTOR growth pathway suppressed. His primary goal is to prevent cellular aging and cancer. But on the exact opposite side, you have Peter Attia, who strongly advocates for a high-protein diet full of animal sources to intentionally trigger those mTOR spikes. Why? Because his goal is to build muscle and prevent the very real, life-threatening dangers of physical frailty and muscle loss as we age. So it's this ultimate biological tug-of-war. Do you suppress growth to prevent cellular trash, or do you stimulate growth to prevent physical frailty?
Section 6. Activating your anti-aging defenses. So how do we actually reconcile this? How do we build muscle while keeping our cellular factory clean? Well, the answer might lie in a biological loophole: caloric restriction mimetics, or CRMs. These are compounds that essentially trick the body into activating autophagy and repair pathways without you having to actually starve yourself. By using these specific compounds, we can trick the nutrient-sensing pathways into sending out the stickman sweepers to clean up the factory floor, all without having to sacrifice the protein we need to maintain our muscles. It's honestly brilliant.
Let's open up that caloric restriction mimetic toolkit and see what's inside. First, we have spermidine, a naturally occurring compound that safely induces autophagy and has been shown to prolong lifespan. Then there's rapamycin, which directly inhibits the mTOR pathway. We've also got resveratrol, which activates your protective sirtuin pathways. And finally, D-allulose, which is a rare sugar that safely restricts glycolytic flux. These fascinating mimetics basically act as biological switches, turning on your cellular sweepers and giving you the internal benefits of fasting while still allowing you to eat optimally for physical performance.
All right, bringing this all together, here is a practical proteostasis lifestyle protocol derived straight from the clinical frameworks we've been talking about. You can amplify these cellular cleanup effects right now by adopting a 12 to 16-hour daily fasting window that naturally drops mTOR. You absolutely need to prioritize 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep to activate that brainwashing lymphatic system. You should be incorporating zone 2 cardio and resistance training to build muscle, which acts as a massive metabolic sink. And periodically, you can utilize a 5-day fasting mimicking diet to help clear out those zombie senescent cells. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to think about. What will you change today? Maybe your next meal, your workout routine, or even just your bedtime to keep your cellular factory running flawlessly. Because ultimately, the power to prevent protein misfolding really is in your hands. So what's going to be your first step to help your cellular stickmen clear out the trash?